As the assisted suicide bill reaches its critical second reading on the 11th of September, a number of campaign groups are calling on people to write to their MPs, urging them to oppose the bill. Many people are deeply concerned with this controversial legislation, including Linda Patton.
Hi, I'm Linda Patton, and in August of 2004, I went into the hospital for a hiatus hernia operation, and I was only supposed to be in the hospital for 2 or 3 days, when in fact I was in the hospital almost a year in 3 various different hospitals. And what happened was that during the operation, somehow my esophagus was punctured, and they didn't know for a couple of days that this had happened. But when I started to drink, they didn't realize that the drink was going through into my chest cavity. And what happened was my daughter was sitting across from me, and I said, "Lisa, I feel like I'm going to pass out." And she came over to sit next to me, and I literally passed out in her arms. And the crash team came to resuscitate me, and I was put on a ventilator. And a few days later, she had to go back to the States, and it turned out where she didn't know if she was going to see me alive ever again. To complicate matters, I got this hospital superbug, MRSA, and so I was in intensive care from August through to December. And during that time, I actually had an out-of-death experience where I went to heaven and hell. And it was just an incredible time. But during that time, my church and my family, they were all praying for me. And it didn't look like I was going to make it. In fact, one of the intensive care nurses told my pastor that I wasn't going to make it. And one of my other friends, who was a nurse, said they were giving me palliative care to keep me comfortable until I died. But during a weak moment of faith, I decided, well, at that time I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't eat, or I couldn't drink. And I was just a blob in the bed. And I just thought, I want to go and be with the Lord. So I pointed to a symbol on the chart that they had given me. I pointed to the symbol of death. And they looked at me and they shook their head and they said, "No, we can't do that." However, had this bill been in effect of assisted dying during that time, they would have had to have let me go. And I'm so thankful now, because even though it's been a very long journey in my recovery, having an open wound for 3 years and having it dressed 3 times a week for 3 years, and the doctors telling me it wouldn't, be possible to heal this, that I would never be able to eat normally again. I would always have to have some type of feeding tube in my stomach. But I'm here today to tell you that God does heal. And the thing about it was, I got well enough and I could walk about 10 steps, but I wasn't ready to go home. And they said I had to go into a rehab situation. And I had heard of a place called Burswood, which is a Christian hospital in the countryside. And I went down there. The first thing the doctors did was kneel at my feet and pray for me. Every day when they visited me within that hospital, they prayed for me. But I was still on a feeding tube. I was still not able to drink or eat. And I was learning to walk all over again. They put my voice box back so I was able to communicate again. But my situation looked hopeless. But in this Christian retreat center, this Christian hospital, they had a church that had healing services twice a week. And I was in a wheelchair going back and forth to the main auditorium where they had the church, where they had the healing services. And one day, it was Easter Sunday, the head of Burswood handed me a little chocolate Easter egg and said, I want you to put this in your bedside table because one day you're going to eat this. And I did so. And I don't remember exactly how many days. It could have been about 2 weeks. I took it out and I ate it, and my esophagus had been completely healed. And so, even though it's been a journey, even though I still have a little bit of breathing problems because as a result they had to take part of my lung, I still am so thankful that I'm alive to not only see my grandchildren grow up, but also to see my 5 great-grandchildren. And so I'm so thankful not only to God, but I'm also thankful that the assisted dying, the euthanasia bill, had not been in effect in this country. Being a British citizen, had it been, I would also have not made it through. And so I'm thankful that it wasn't. And I'm very passionate to say to you that it's a bill that should not be passed. And so I'm thankful to God that I'm still alive.